sick. Our super seams keep us strong, and our super band waistband keeps them
Men's
back.
cotton briefs with Superband waistband, only $1.33.
Something is missing from that Superband waistband, and it looks naked without it. But this is what we've come to expect from our revived reality. This is your host, JaQobian. Today we cover case file number 2, the second of my foundational 5, and arguably best Mandela of them all. Fruit of the Loom's once iconic, now missing, Cornucopia. Those who remember it tend to remember it without question. An instantly recognizable iconic design element that's now been entirely erased from existence. We need only go to the company website to confirm not once has the curvaceous horn of plenty ever been implemented into the design of their logo, which is comparable to Nike never having a swoosh or McDonald's never having golden arches, just unacceptably impossible. And I've got the anchor memories, or rather anchor experiences, to back it up. As a child, morning after morning, I'd see the weird shaped basket on the tag on my underwear before putting them on for the day. Or, while on the toilet taking a squat. With my clothes bunched around my ankles, the tag would catch my eye, and I'd look at it with a deep curiosity. Back then, I had no idea what a cornucopia was. I didn't know what a loom was either. I mistakenly concluded this curved basket thing must be called a loom. Eventually, pointing it out to my parents where they corrected me, turning it into an educational moment. What's intriguing is, go to basically any Mandela effect, fruit of the loom thread out there, and you'll find one person after another recounting the same, that this brand was the reason they first learned about cornucopias. Many even sharing the exact same childhood thought process of thinking the curved basket was called a loom. Another frequently shared anchor was initially mistaking it for a seashell, and in other instances, first thinking it was a croissant. I too had briefly considered the seashell option before brilliantly settling on my little loom theory. These are some interesting connections, seeing as how now there's never been anything within the logo design remotely shaped like those items. These are detailed situations amongst unrelated strangers scattered all across the world that shouldn't be possible unless the logo once existed in the prior specified way. Not realizing the significance of this is to have blinders on. It's just too incredible to ignore. In spite of this widespread extraordinary consistency, Mandela deniers will still sweep it aside and exclaim, "That was a long time ago. You're going to conclude based off some distant childhood memories that reality is changing?" Whoa. Excuse me. People still wear t-shirts and underwear growing up. We look at these tags as a visual aid to make sure they're being put on in the right direction. It's not like we all had these experiences and the cornucopia disappeared off the face of the planet immediately after. Fruit of the Loom is a major brand. I think it's safe to say that along with Hanes, they're pretty much the Coke and Pepsi of the underwear market. I personally went on to see the tags and packaging with the iconic corn of plenty on store shelves up into my early 20s. It was immediately noticeable when it was gone. After the change, not once did it cross my mind that, gee, I must have imagined the whole thing. How could I? I knew it too well. I figured the company simply did away with it for looking too old-fashioned and went for a more simplified look. And as is the case with all these logo-based MEs, I certainly never thought it was retroactively revised out of all existence. Back to the issue of distant childhood memories real quick. Some of our most vivid, reliable memories come from childhood. And why? Because the world is completely new to us. We absorb everything like a sponge. Our earliest observations make a strong, everlasting impact. Who in their right mind would dismiss these most foundational occurrences in life? A cornucopia is an eye-catching, peculiar item to a young child. In this instance, it was linked to something worn daily on my person. It was intimately known. Almost a part of me, in a sense, you might say. One of the first people I called when learning about this effect was my mom. She bought my underwear and did the laundry at the time. I asked her a simple question, zero power of suggestion. I said, "Hey Mom, this is going to seem weird, but describe the Fruit of the Loom logo." She did find the question odd, you catch people off guard with this, but the very first thing she said was, "It has a curved basket." Boom, no hesitation. She barely had to think about it. I eventually got her to ask her husband, he's a bit of a gruff guy. His answer? Fruits in that horn basket thing. In fact, most people I've quizzed will mention fruits, then follow it up with curved basket, horn basket, cornucopia. For my mom, it was the very first thing that came to mind. Obviously, she, along with her husband, along with those I've quizzed, along with many of you listening now, had always seen it just as clearly as I used to. A laughable if not insulting explanation is we're all conflating this thing with Thanksgiving arrangements. That after observing such holiday displays subconsciously, we then expect to see a cornucopia whenever viewing assorted arrangements of fruit. So much so that when the surrounding container is absent, our minds fill in the void, essentially experiencing a hallucination. I shouldn't even have to address such utter nonsense, but since it's the absolute go-to explanation from deniers, I'm kind of forced to. If anything, the expectation would be to see a fruit bowl, a common item we're most familiar with and see all year long. I'll even be generous and make it a basket-woven fruit bowl. Most of these holiday displays I've seen involving a Horn of Plenty usually contain things like corn, squash, and pumpkins with more of a dry, earthy color palette, not fresh, juicy, bright-colored fruit. Why aren't we misassociating cornucopias to other brands if that's really what we're so compelled to see? Plenty of other stuff out there with fruit-clustered visuals that are ripe for mass, collective misremembering. And let's not forget those who mistook it initially for a seashell or a croissant. Why lump them in with such conflation, when a cornucopia wasn't at all what came to their mind? Fruit of the Loom sells products internationally. What about all the overseas countries that don't celebrate Thanksgiving? How would they conflate the two? Mandela deniers will still manage to say with a straight face that the cornucopia is common enough everywhere that surely that's the explanation, declare mystery solved, pat each other on the back, and stand proud in their delusional brilliance. Sorry, there's nothing common and familiar about a cornucopia. They're incredibly odd looking. That's why it stood out visually on our tags. In fact, they still kind of weird me out to this day. I've witnessed many arrangements of fruit in my time, and can honestly say not once has there ever been the slightest expectation towards seeing a bowl, basket, or whatever other container one could imagine. Fruits are fruits. They're perfectly fine on their own. Yet we're expected to believe that so prevalent is a subconscious expectation to see a cornucopia behind a cluster of fruit that even when presenting our clothing tags to an adult for a second opinion, they too in that moment suddenly experience the exact same hallucination, proceed to explain what the curved basket was, while in reality we are all looking at nothing? That is retardedly absurd. I can hear the condescending responses now, though. Well, what's more likely then, that we merge into a parallel universe? The cause is completely unknown. That's what we're here trying to find out. These are special circumstances. Something spectacularly new is happening. Shoehorning in desperate conventional answers is really of no help. If this was a simple case of mass confabulation or flawed eyewitness accounts, we wouldn't have such astounding consistency. There would be a multitude of variations and disagreements. We'd have entire separate waves of people saying they remember a regular shaped basket with handles on it, or a barrel tipped over on its side. Maybe a bowl where the perspective and curvature made it look like a horn. How about a grocery bag? Fruits tumbled out of a burlap sack. But we don't find such separate waves, do we? What we find is one massive, singular tidal wave who claim it was of all things a cornucopia, linked specifically to this brand. Let me preempt nonsense I know I'll get from deniers. I think I haven't nailed now how they process information. They'll say, "Oh, what are you talking about? You just said earlier people thought it was a seashell or croissant. Those are variations." No. What I pointed out was people initially mistook it for those things before realizing it was a cornucopia. A shared experience with a horn-shaped item. Do you understand the difference? Learn to pay better attention to detail, deniers. It's probably why you're not noticing these effects. Another laughable explanation is the suggestion we're all confusing this with some long-lost bootleg product. As if Fruit of the Loom is some expensive luxury brand where there'd be demand for a more affordable option.
That's high quality.
At a low price.
If so, it must have been the best-selling knockoff brand of all time, purchased worldwide to cause all these so-called confabulated learning experiences, then somehow snuck under the shelves of Kmart and Target, which, other than my underwear drawer, is where I'd always see the thing. Also, don't forget the commercials. It was super mainstream. That the existence of this is even up for debate amongst those who were around during that era is just beyond insane. Some imbeciles have even allowed themselves to be duped into thinking they mistook brown leaves from older iterations of the logo to be the famed Horn of Plenty. Do they really lack that much sense of shape and spatial recognition? Does it really need to be explained how there's no comparison here? Where is the horn shape? Who'd mistake a clump of leaves like this for something like a seashell or croissant? Along with the other excuses, it goes to show how desperate people are for anything they can grasp at to try and explain this phenomenon away. They're incapable of processing new information that reality doesn't operate the way they were taught, to the point of calling into question something they've seen with their own eyes, just the same as countless others. abandoning personal sense and reason to slavishly adhere to their conditioning. It's time to snap out of it, people.
Tell me, Bat, do you always indulge yourself in such snappy repartee?
No, today I'm wearing Fruit of the Loom.
I got that clip from a Mighty Mouse cartoon I watched literally 30 years ago as a 10, 11-year-old child, all of one time. It was tricky to track down, but I was confident in my fallible memory that the Bat character did a gag about wearing Fruit of the Loom underwear. And what do you know? I find the episode and it checks out. There it is, reliably, just as remembered. But something I've seen with regularity, roughly half my life doesn't check out. And not just with Fruit of the Loom, but hundreds of other items at this point. I'm supposed to just ignore that and continue like nothing strange is occurring? There's no way I'm not inept when it comes to observing my surroundings. And I don't think my fellow Mandelaites are either. If shockingly similar widespread anchor experiences aren't compelling enough, Fruit of the Loom also happens to have some of the best world-class residue. Starting with this joke blurb from a 1974 newspaper. Well, it's corny and copious. A 4th grade teacher in Brainerd, Minnesota, recently drew a horn of plenty on the blackboard and asked the class if anyone knew the correct name for it. One child raised his hand and answered, "I know, it's a Fruit of the Loom." How did this make it through the editorial process? Why are they making reference to something that never existed and printing it in the paper for all to read when no one would understand the punchline? People sure had a strange sense of humor back then. For more strangeness from yesteryear, we have the 1973 Frank West jazz album, Flute of the Loom. Look at this magnificent specimen. It takes effort to contort a long, skinny item like a flute into the shape of a cornucopia. Clever thought had to go into it. Why bother, though? Why parody something that no one would understand? Oh, but we do understand, don't we? Or at least at one time most of us would have. Let's try a simple comparison. Does this look like this? Or this? I think the answer is obvious. Even the squash provides echoes of the shape that once was. You know, I've actually had deniers say that because of the color coordination amongst the fruits and foods, that makes it enough to be an obvious parody. A correlation they're only able to notice, by the way, because they're sitting down studiously, taking time to analyze both right next to each other. The average customer strolling through the record shop isn't doing that. They're not standing around giving themselves wedgies to do any side-by-side comparisons and make that kind of connection. Matching colors was clearly a creative objective, though, and I doubt the artist has a photographic memory. It shows the actual logo was used as reference to accurately match them up like that. Not just for colors, but also the obvious sweeping basket that used to be in the background, the core visual element that ties the piece together, making it instantly recognizable for a wide range of consumers who wouldn't have to think twice about what it was referencing at the time. Next, we'll move forward to the 2006 film, The Ant Bully. The boy gets shrunk down in bed and is next to his gigantic pair of underwear. Let's inspect the tag. Size 6, Fruit of the Loin, an obvious play on words to the famous brand, complete with prominent cornucopia, making for another parody that should make no sense in current reality, on a feature film that had a team of creatives. It's standard practice when parodying these things to go back and look at the original source, not just for accuracy's sake to ensure it makes comedic sense, but also to possibly garner additional ideas that otherwise wouldn't be thought of. No one along the creative chain piped up about the flawed gag? Well, this lack of professionalism must have caught on, because next we've got South Park, Season 16, Episode 6, titled, I Should Have Never Gone Ziplining, which aired in 2012. It's a really gross scene, so forgive the crudeness. Cartman has a nasty accident in his pants with a disgusting close-up of what's going on inside. Try to look past that and inspect the tag he's defiling. What's this we find? Cornucopia brand? Wonder what that could be in reference to. Yet another team of creatives, solidly out of touch with reality, making jokes about something that no one should understand. But we do get the joke, don't we? Let's not pretend we don't. It's okay, deniers. It can be our little secret. Seriously, take pause and wonder, why is this thing consistently being referenced throughout all these years, linked specifically to this brand, if it's never existed? Same as with all the identical anchor experiences, it's just too incredible to ignore. This world in our existence is so strange. I mean, how many of us ever thought one of the keys to enlightenment would be revealed through our old underwear? Bravo to whoever did the recreation of the logo, by the way. It's so well done, it's almost suspicious. Could have easily been drawn in different proportions or sweeping in the opposite direction. They even match the existing line art. It's such a joy to see it so accurately done. To wrap things up, I think it's worth recapping why Fruit of the Loom is the absolute gold standard when it comes to MEs. So often, Mandela effect changes are subtle. This was a bold, unique icon, with nothing subtle at all about its disappearance, and no similar brand to confuse it with. People had repeated exposure to it, with many seeing it on a daily basis while getting dressed, over the span of years, if not decades. It's easily researched, with accessible logo history directly from the company's official website. It has easy-to-find old print ads and commercials. Hell, there are even pack rats who sold old unopened bags on eBay. It possesses quality mainstream residuals with the Ant Bully in South Park. Then finally, and most important of all, are the shared detailed anchor experiences, consistent amongst diverse sets of unrelated people, that wouldn't be possible unless this thing once had a horn aplenty, making it completely undeniable to the point where even many stubborn Mandela critics take pause that something might be going on because of this one. So profound is this change for me, I almost named my channel Reality Loom. And don't any of you message me months from now saying you remember my channel being called that, or saying I was JaQobian with a C instead of a Q or something. I assure you there's no way I'm shifty like that. Before I end, a special shout out goes to Brian McFarland for mirroring my tombstone video and sending subscribers my way. I think it's so great we have supportive people like him within the community who realize how important it is to share this information. Most people still aren't aware of this phenomenon, guys. I encourage everyone affected to spread the word. I know it can be difficult. I know it sucks to be labeled the crazy person. But we've got to try. We've got to plant seeds so those people have a clue what's going on if and when it finally hits them.